Okay.
All right, welcome to the third episode of the People Side Podcast. I'm here with my guest, Jasmine. Do you want to introduce yourself?
No, actually.
Briefly?
No.
Okay, you can remain mysterious if you want. That's what Nelson did in the previous podcast.
I'm just kidding. Oh my god, that's so hard. You can't just hit me with this.
No, you just give a one-liner. You can just say your name.
Okay, my name is Jasmine. You literally just said my name.
Yeah.
Like it literally does. What do you mean? I'm so confused.
What do you do? Give the audience a one-liner of what you do.
Okay, I'm Jasmine. I'm a product designer. I do shit.
Cool. 10 out of 10 intro.
Hard.
Okay,
I don't know.
Now I bet you're. So we have a couple of topics.
Okay.
That I wanted to talk about here, and the reason I brought you on this podcast is because, believe it or not, you've actually taught me a lot of things about how to be a good friend. So a lot of these topics are related to friendship and how to be a good friend. So do you have one that you would like to start with?
See, it's really hard because I'm like one of the least decisive people. Like every single time
Pick the first one. Just pick the first one.
Okay. I'm really curious about the game.
Right.
Like, what game?
Yeah. So in the past, when COVID hit, I joined your Discord server and we were talking about things on Discord.
Yeah.
And the game was like an escape room game. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because I was trying to understand how Discord works, right?
Yeah.
Because different people, I'm like, oh, you can make online friends and you can also make like offline friends. But during COVID, you didn't really have a choice, right? It had to be online.
Yeah.
So something that stood out to me was you played this game with your friends and I joined you and it seemed like they didn't know how to play. So I was like, how did they get this game? And you said, I just bought this game for all of them.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things where I was like, oh, okay, this is one of those moments when I was like, oh, so this is how you kind of like create a event for everyone, right? Because usually with games and events, you're like, oh, do you want to play this game or do you want to play? But you just bought it. You just bought it for everyone.
I was just like, I want to play it.
Yeah.
You guys better do it.
Yeah. It kind of blew my mind a little. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. I guess I never thought too much about it because I just at the time I was just like, I just want to play this game. And what is the least resistant way to convince all my friends to do it? I'm just gonna buy it for them.
Yeah.
And it's just a bubble tea anyways. It's cheaper than a bubble tea.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure. I think it was, but I don't even remember what game it was. Was it Pico Park?
It was the escape room game. I don't know what it's called.
Oh, Escape Room Simulator. Then.
Yeah.
It's the one where you can create escape rooms and then you can also participate in other people's escape rooms.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It was it was on sale and I was like, why not? So yeah.
Because I'm not, so something that I'm working on is giving back without any expectation of anything in return, and that is one of the pieces. And then the other piece is, if you ever want to invite people to do things and you want to, like you said, decrease the amount of friction, you just do it for them. So in this case, you buy the game for them. I applied this concept 2 other times in my life, where the first one was Halloween, where I don't know if you saw, but I bought a Toski clan, I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, the Naruto one, the cloak, right?
Yeah,
and I was trying to find someone to wear it with me, right? And I was like, I'll just buy 2 costumes because it's I don't need to. So I just bought 2 costumes and then I convinced one other guy to wear it with me, and he didn't really watch Naruto. He was like, I can't wear this because I'm gonna be a phony. And I'm like, it's okay because I don't really watch it either. I didn't watch the whole thing, but because I bought the costume.
You didn't watch the whole thing?
No, I didn't watch the whole thing.
Brother, I can't be on this podcast.
I know how it ends though. Listen, I know how it ends.
How does it end?
Naruto and Sasuke have a big fight, and I think it ends in a tie or some shit, and then Boruto happens. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a very general way of describing it. You could have known that just off of summaries and not have actually read it.
Exactly. Okay. But the concept here is the concept that I learned was the whole friends things and the whole invitation thing. If you want to invite people to do things and you already take the steps that they need to take in order to say yes, it it just decreases the friction.
Yeah.
Like I bought 2 Santa hats, and then I just like
that's
during
why you
Christmas.
guys were wearing Santa
Yeah. Because I was like,
I
was like, hey, you want to wear a Santa hat with me downtown?
Yeah, that's so nice. I don't know. I'm glad that like, Anya, I feel like you see a lot of the things like that I do, and like you have like a really unique way of like looking at it and like seeing the value in other people and what they do, and the way that you like kind of almost like package it in your own way and then like talk about it, I feel like is like, I don't know, it's just like really unique, and I like your perspective, because sometimes I don't realize like, well, like whenever I do it, I'm just like, this is just normal, this is common sense, but then
it's not normal to me.
Yeah, it's not normal.
It's not normal to me.
Which is like, no, it helps me see it in like a light that's like, oh, maybe I should appreciate this more too when like my friends do it to me, or like when like my friends like, you know, they like vibe and like buy me shit and like help me out too. So I don't know, it's just like yeah, thanks to you too.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Would you say that
No problem.
because would you next question?
Yeah.
Would you say that because you see it as normal, you almost take it for granted when other people do the same thing for you?
I probably do. Like, I mean, like, I feel like I probably take a lot of things for granted that I don't realize until like later, or that like I don't see it. So yeah, I would say that I probably do. Maybe I don't like consciously know, but yeah, I think like yeah, like a lot of the things, especially like with my roomies lately, I noticed, I was like, wow, like everyone like at our house is like so clean and they care about our space so much. And I used to see it as like something that I didn't like, but I realized like this is actually kind of a blessing, because like, I mean, I could easily have roommates that don't have that same like level of like cleanliness, or they don't like want like certain things a certain way, and like I'm just glad that we've like kind of gotten to that point where we're like at peace about it. So yeah, I think that's something maybe that I took for granted for a while. Yeah,
I see.
anything that you take for granted? This is a journaling
oh
moment.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I thought I was the one asking questions.
Get wrecked. It's back at you.
Things that I take for granted, I feel like sometimes I take living downtown for granted.
Oh,
like
no, yeah, it's so cool
yeah
there.
like having this space, having like my roommate, sometimes he would just like, he usually is at his desk all the time like working, and then sometimes he would just stand up like, and then you just look out the window. and then I'm like what's up, and he's like, Andy, we're downtown. I'm just like, oh yeah, right. Yeah,
true.
Yeah, and so like that, like I feel like before I made this move and everything, I knew that living downtown, like convenience, right, access to opportunities, all these things, but every now and then I kind of take it for granted. Yeah,
that's so cool.
And like the opportunities to meet people too.
Yeah,
like I think a lot of people, including myself in the past, they don't realize how important where you live is. Because you go, it's like, it's where you go back home to every day. It's where you spend, you know, like the majority of your time if you're studying there or if you're working from home, right? It's like, it's so important. And so when I moved here, like before I moved here, and I knew I wanted to live downtown because, you know, of all these things.
That makes sense, yeah. Like, do you find that like most of your friends are also in downtown?
I would say that the friend group that I have now, like some of them are downtown, and I feel like I really value being able to meet up with people, so that we're like 10 minutes away from each other, like walking, and so it's very easy for us to just like, hey, do you want to come over and like play Switch or something? And so that's something that I've always wanted. So I think location is important for making friends. I think it's often overlooked because there's so much friction whenever you want to try to make friends. But going back to the topic of making friends, you also have a online group of friends, right? So I guess like the question that I wanted to ask, and the question I should have started this whole podcast off was, in your opinion, how do you make and keep friends?
How do I make and keep friends? I don't know that, like, because okay,
I'll also add that like you seem like a popular person.
No, I am not.
every time I'm like, oh, she's like, oh, no. she's this is like our podcast. Oh, she's like a part of this club. It's like, oh, like I feel like you're the type of person that gets invited to shit a lot.
No. It's like, okay, like, you said that last time, and, like, we'll get to that part later, but, like, the question was, how do I make friends, right? And, like, like, I wanted to start off by, like, saying, like, hey, like, I feel like after watching your YouTube videos and getting to know you too, just as a friend, like, I feel like you really like these, like you really thrive in, like, giving people, like, clear understandings of, like, this is how, like, I do this, and, like, you're really good. Like, even when I was coming here, you gave me directions, and it was, like, super clear. Yes. Whereas, like, if it were me, I'm, like, very, like, I don't know. I just, like, I don't really categorize those things or, like, think about it, like, in a, like, concrete sense. I think about it, like, really abstractly and flowy. So back to the friends thing, I feel like I don't know. I feel like friends are usually just, like, out of, like, some friends are out of, like, accidents. Like, I'll forget my pencil, and I'll be like, hey, like, can I borrow a pencil? Yeah. And then we'll just start talking. And I think really it's just, like, at that point when you start talking, if you follow up and you ask each other and you stay curious, I think that's the thing. But I think making friends isn't hard. I think it's really keeping friends and, like, you know, like, continuously valuing them. Yes. And, like nurturing that friendship that, like, really, like, brings me joy. Like, I think that's the part that, like, that like, matters to me a lot. But yeah, I'm not popular though. I don't get invited to shit. I don't. Like, I mean, I do, but, like, when I do, like,
I don't, but I do.
No, but when I do get invited, it's usually like, oh my god, I'm so grateful for that friend for inviting me, because I'm like, I never get invited, so I'm like, I'm so happy. So yeah, like, honestly, like, it might seem that way, but I don't get invited as much as you probably think.
Okay. But going back to how, in your opinion, how do you keep friends?
How do I keep friends? I think it's just, like, not giving up on each other. Like, I think at the end of the day, it's like, so I had a friend, I don't know if I should mention her name, but, like,
you can keep it anonymous.
Okay. I'll just keep it anonymous.
If you're okay with sharing the story.
But she's a really dear friend of mine. Yeah. And, like, I felt like when I first got to know her worldview was kind of like, well, if they stop talking to me, I should withdraw right away. You know, if they stop giving back to me, like, I feel scared, and, like, I feel, like, nervous that I'm gonna lose them and that they don't want to talk to me, so I just won't bother them, right? And I feel like it's really sad, because I feel like so many people are like that nowadays, that it's like,
I can relate to that.
Yeah
100%.
No, I can see that too, because I was like, oh, like, I understand that it could be scary, that you feel like a bother, and, like, we went through that. So, like over the summer, me being the ass texter that I am, I was really busy that summer. I was going through some stuff, honestly, too. So it was kind of like me struggling and also being a bad friend and, like, not texting her back. But over the summer, like, we didn't text for a long time, and she had thought, like, oh, is she ignoring me? Does she not want to be friends with me? And, like, yeah, like, she just, like, she was so kind of, like, hung up around that when we came back for, I think, like, Comp Sci 210 that year, we, like, saw each other, like, walking down campus, right? And then, like, so she was walking with her friend, and I was walking with, like, my friends, and, like, we were gonna go to the same class, but then we just met up, like, in between. It was random. We didn't, like, talk to meet up. Yeah. And we just saw each other, and then I was like, hey, hey, friend. And then she, like, looked at me, and she, like, turned around and just walked the other way. And that was, like, the worst feeling ever. I just, like, I could not, like, I felt so sad that day. I went home and I, like, literally cried. I was like, yeah. But, like, I realized, like, the reason why I felt so, like, sad and, like, whatnot, like her kind of actions, they weren't, like, I could see where she was coming from, basically, because I had hurt her that much that she would do that to me, right? Because, like, by not talking to her over the summer, like she felt so, like, ignored that she felt like she had to physically ignore me when she saw me too. Or else I wouldn't be honest to what she was feeling, which is why I really appreciate her as a friend, because she was really honest. But yeah, like, I think it, like, at that time, like, that was something that was, like, really, really like scarring, like really sad.
Yeah.
But despite that, I was like, I really want to keep her as a friend. Like, I really value her and I really treasure her as a friend, and like she's like helped me through so many of my things that like I would be really sad if like she just left my life like that. So yeah, I was just like, I kept reaching out to her even though like, you know, she wouldn't respond back. And then I had bought a gift for her over the summer because I saw this thing and I was like, oh yo, like there's this like little thing. And then because she wouldn't talk to me or like meet up with me, it was just like a wall of silence. I was just like, hey, like I reached out to one of her friends that we both knew, and I was like, hey, like I bought this thing for her, like is it okay if like you help me give it to her?
So you went through another friend to get to her.
Yeah, basically, because I was like, well, I mean, like I don't want to just like not give it to her, so I was just like, if she's not gonna talk to me or meet up with me, at least like maybe I can give it to a friend so that she can eventually get it. So then, yeah, where was I?
I wanna wrap some things up because or rehash some things. So the earlier question, how do you make friends?
Yeah.
You said being curious. And I think that is, if I had to summarize what you said, I feel like that really stood out to me. Like, I don't know if that would be a good summary, but I really agree with that. Like being curious. Like, so I'll tell a story of one time me and my friends, we were talking about this, right? Because I had a whole phase where I was trying to learn social skills and talk to strangers.
Yeah.
And he started doing it too, and he started asking people questions in the elevator. So like, for example, someone would come in with like, I don't know, like shorts or something, and he'd be like, "Oh, did you go to the gym? Like what gym did you go to?"
Yeah.
And so I think being curious is a really good way to start interactions with people because it shows that you're interested just in general.
Yeah.
And more often than not, there's not like a hidden intent behind it, because I feel like a lot of people can sense that when you have like a hidden intent. And the other thing that you said was about how to keep friends is not giving up. And so with your story, I want to know what made you decide to not give up. Like, why did you, it sounded like you went through a hurdle and then you put in so much extra effort to try to make amends, but why? Like, why did you go through, like
yeah. Oh my God, you asking the good questions, yo. Like, so true. I guess, like, at the end of the day, it's just, like, I really value, like, people in my life, like, and especially, like, because like she had helped me through like so many things before, and we'd gone through like so much that I was like, it'd be sad like if they weren't like there for like my future like events, and like I don't know, I just want them to be a part of my life, like even if it means like us going through this temporary pain. Like right now is just like, it's okay if it's painful right now. Like I feel like the future and like what we could be as friends could be so cool. So yeah, now we're like good friends, and like I feel like we've always been really like appreciative of that time. It's like, oh my God, like thank God we're still friends. We're so happy right now. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just really just like seeing people for who they are and like kind of their value, I guess. I don't know. It's hard
do you think I'm really curious about this, because like I'm a very, very logical person, and you seem more on the emotional side of things.
Yeah.
When you made this decision, was it more of a emotional decision or a logical decision?
It was definitely like a emotional. I don't think I make a lot of decisions that are logical.
As someone who is not as emotional, can you describe that to me? Because like if I was gonna share, like, because I've also had to like, you know, cut friends out of my life, right?
Yeah.
For one reason or the other. And the logical process behind that is like, you know, being basically what you said about value, right? Like, has this person been there for me in the past? Like going through basically like a list of like pros and cons, essentially.
Wow, that's so interesting.
So like what does it look like from an emotional perspective?
Well, no, yeah, so different. It's like, I would never think of that. Like, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
No, like, cause like, yeah, when I was going through, I was just like, wow, I feel so sad. I must really value this person. The fact that I'm crying so hard, the fact that I like feel so sad, like must mean like I like truly value and love this person so much.
Yeah.
Like from the inside out. And I love, like, not in like the romantic way, but like in the platonic way. Like I think you can love people even if they're, you know, like they're friends.
Yeah, there's different types of loves. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I just like I was so sad, and I think the fact that I was so sad like told me like this person matters to me. You know. Yeah. Okay. Like I think it was a different type of sad from like if someone was bullying you or like making you feel hurt. That's a different like it's a different type of sad.
Man, I'm over here like I'm like there's different types of sad. What?
Oh my god, bro.
Man, I just I just classify everything as sad. Yeah. Like if it's sad.
So like if we were to break up as friends, right?
Yeah.
Like how would you like? I guess like if I did something super hurtful to you, and like it was something that like. I don't know. Oh,
I can start listing off the. No, I'm joking.
Oh, sheesh. Okay.
Okay. Well. Okay. So here's the issue with like being so. There's pros and cons to both sides, right?
Yeah.
And I've learned that there's like I'm trying to get better at understanding and listening to emotions because there's a lot of cons to being very logical. There's definitely a lot of pros too, right? Like, you know, you're very analytical, you're able to quickly analyze situations, but when it comes to people and relationships, there's a lot of cons. And so an example is when people don't text back, right? Like, or when people are slow texters. Yeah. We've had like the short answer to this, if I was to give like a high level overview is I read a book about self-compassion. And that really changed how I viewed the world and some of the things that I kind of saw. I think one of the examples they gave in the book was in like one of the early chapters was when you look at a homeless man, do you think he's like someone asking for money? Do you think he's just an annoyance, right? And I feel like a lot of people, including myself, right, they say yes, right? Like someone like, you know, you go through the SkyTrain or whatever, and someone asks you for money, someone asks you for change, you know, they're often ignored, they're often like kind of scoffed at. And then the book goes on to talk about why, right? Because if you think about it from a human perspective, they're human too, you know, they're just trying to like do this thing, they're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And yet a lot of us have this, you know, adverse reaction to homeless people. And so the TLDR was I learned more about self-compassion, and I think once you learn about self-compassion, compassion towards yourself, you're able to apply that to other people.
Yeah.
And so it took me a while to understand where you were coming from in terms of like how you work and how like, you know, you're not as logical as me. Sometimes you forget things. You're a slow texter, but not out of spite. I think that took me a long time to understand because in the past I had this issue where I would get very pissed at people who don't reply quickly because I'm the type of person that would not reply quickly, but like I make it an effort to reply to all the messages that get sent to me. I mark messages as unread. And I go back and I like, you know, reply them. And sometimes if I read a message, like the people who are like, sorry, I read your message, but I didn't reply. I'm like, that's not me, because if I read your message, I will mark it as unread.
Oh my God.
And then I will go back to it and reply. And then it will like, it's kind of like a checklist, you know? It's a lot more of a logical process. There's cons to this too, because sometimes you just don't have the emotional bandwidth to like sometimes I'll leave people unread for like ever. Because it's like at the bottom of my list and I gotta like, you know,
scroll and then you forget about it.
Exactly. So there's pros and cons. I don't even know what my original point was. What was
Well, I really love the point, like I'm curious about this book and like also like just like like how you're like seeing people as just like, oh, they're just humans and they're just trying to live life as well. And the original point was like, how do you make friends and how like
Right, but I think I asked a question about how like emotion versus logic side of things for assessing whether or not to give someone up. And your answer was the intensity of the emotion, and there are spectrums to certain types of emotion like sadness.
On that, I wanted to also touch on like, I feel like for me it's like I don't really ever assess like what I get from a relationship and what I give. It's more just like I'll give and everything will just follow. Like, and like I don't, because I feel like in life, or like even in just like the books that I've read, like Where Should We Begin from Esther Perel, like it's like you can't ever expect other people to change. Like one quote that I really love is like, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world, but today I was wise, so I wanted to change myself. And it's like you can't really ever expect anyone else to kind of give back or fill the hole that is like your own emotional needs and relationship. You can't expect one person to do that. And the most that you can ever do is just give as much as you can. And then things will follow if they follow, and if they don't, then they don't. If someone leaves you and they leave you, like you can't force them to come back, so just let them leave you, and if they come back, then it's meant to be. I feel like that's kind of like the philosophy, if I had to like, put it down in like concrete terms. That's like kind of how I see things. But yeah, I don't know, how do you see friendships too? Like, how do you make friends?
Yeah.
Wait a second. Reverse.
You're like, this guy, this very logical high. How does he make friends?
I'm curious.
Yeah. So I want to mention something. So what you said reminded me of something that I have to constantly remind myself of, which is you can't control other people. Like you can't change other people because it's like, because they're other people. Like you can't, and this goes into like expectations and stuff too, which is, I think expectations is one of the things that I've had to constantly come back to and relearn lessons around, because it's when you have expectations for other people that problems arise. Right? Like if you have roommates and you expect them to be clean, but that was never communicated. That's an assumption that can start, like hurtful or negative feelings, and then if it never gets talked about, that can like spiral. If with bad texters, if you expect someone to reply to you but you don't understand their situation, or you never communicated with them, or you don't understand what they're going through, then like that can also lead to negative emotion. There's a lot of stuff around expectations, and I think the thing that I've had to learn over and over again with making friends and relationships is you can't control other people. And it's like, just check your expectations. Like more often than not, it's better just to not have expectations unless they've been communicated. No,
that's so true. Like I think like it just like comes down to being like, I'm just gonna accept them for who they are, and like not put any burden on them, because like I can't, like there's like no, like if I do, like I don't know, it's just like everyone is who they are, and I can't do much to change that. There's no point of me. Why would I want to? They're beautiful the way they are. I'll just accept it as it is. And like I think I put more of those expectations just on myself with like trying to do things better, which I'm clearly still.
So I'll go back to answering your earlier question, which is like, how do I kind of make friends? And I'll start off by talking about the definition of a friend, because I've asked several times to both myself and other people for insights, like what exactly is a friend? And as a really logical person, I can start listing out things, right? But what I've found is that the best answer is it's a feeling, which is like I feel like the way I approach the world is I wrap logic around emotional things to try to understand them.
Yes. I noticed that in your videos too. I was like, wow, like he really put like terms to this, like I was like, dang. And like I'm not gonna lie, like can I be honest? Like at first I was honestly like really like turned away from it. I was like, but like you can't put things into boxes like that. But then I realized like after like going back, it's like everyone is just trying to understand this thing, right? And everyone's just going at it at different angles. And because you understand it in such a logical way, like it's okay to put it in boxes, because other people might put it in boxes too, and they need those boxes to understand what it is. And I think that you do that. So at first I was like, I hate these videos. Stop putting into boxes, Andy. Like, this is so stupid. Why? But then I realized I was like, there's people out there that probably need this too, that don't understand it in like their own way, and seeing it through your lens can help them understand it too.
Yeah.
So I was like,
I mean, I could also be wrong too. There's like the issue with the issue with trying to use logic to describe things that aren't logical is that there are things that you just won't consider. Like, for example, right? Like with this, back to this whole thing about like friendship.
Yeah.
If I list out things that I think would make a friend, I'm going to miss some things, or there are going to be certain things that I agree with that other people disagree with. Whereas if I say it's a feeling, you know, that kind of applies to everyone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the best answer that I've gotten to is it's a feeling, right? Like if you meet someone and you vibe and then, you know, you go to events together, there's going to be some sort of feeling that is going to be generated based on the interactions that you have, right? Like you being nice to them being nice to you, right? You know, you give them a ride. They like, there's so many, I can put this in a very, very logical terms, but at the end of the day, the output is a feeling, right? If somebody mentions their name, if somebody asks like, hey, this person is hosting a party, do you want to go to it? You're going to have a feeling associated to that. And so the best definition that I've come up with in terms of friends is just a feeling. Yeah. And going back to making friends, I feel like I've done a lot of, I guess you could say, like work around not really thinking too much / having, you know, like a framework or agenda or whatever when going into interactions. Because I overthink a lot. And I've gotten a lot better at being like, okay, just let it flow and like, let's just see what happens. Because in the past, I don't know I feel like I didn't really do this super consciously because it's just how I kind of am. I did approach things with quite a lot of logic. And I had a point where I was like, it's weird to me how I have people I can message and I feel like I have a lot of friends, but I don't actually feel like I have friends. If that makes sense. Wow. You know, it's like, and I think that's because either A, the feeling wasn't there with a lot of people, or B, the feeling was there, but I was not able to grasp it or to listen to it. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like I couldn't feel it. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I think that's something that I'm still trying to figure out / get better at. But if you want a really logical answer on how to make friends, you just go out and you just talk to people. And if you vibe, then great. But this assumes that like you have a solid foundation, right? Because I think that's like a lot of, I feel like a lot of these questions are answered, but they're not, you don't consider where the other person is at. Like somebody can ask me, how do I make friends? Right? And like I can give a completely different answer to two different people after getting to know them better. Because it assumes that like this answer that I just gave assumes that you have a solid foundation. It assumes that, you know, like you know what's going on and with you and yourself, and you know what you're looking for in terms of like friendships and stuff. Basically, I'm trying to say you have a life.
Wow.
As harsh as that sounds. Wow. Because, you know, if you don't like, you know, you come off as needy, you come off as someone with an agenda. You like, it's kind of difficult to make, like, how do I phrase this? The odds of you meeting people that you vibe with and that you'll keep as long-term friends drastically go up if you just have your foundation set. Like if you know, like I don't know how else to explain it.
I feel like maybe it's just because like we see the world like really differently, but like I feel like like foundation wise, it's like as long as I treat everyone with like respect, as long as I keep my sense of self, as long as like I know that whenever I'm in a social situation, I'll just do the best to be me and like you know, try to keep the vibes like going. Like I think I'll be okay. And I think it's also telling yourself that, because I think a lot of the time people get like so worked up and self-conscious about themselves, like what am I doing, what am I like doing wrong, that like they get caught up in that, and then they forget to be curious about other people because they stop being curious or respectful of themselves. And I think that like it's like what you're saying, like it's like if people are kind of, they don't have that foundation of themselves or like understanding, then I think it's hard to have that same security with other friends.
What do you think is like, I don't want to say the one thing because there's probably a bunch. So let's say like top 3 in a good foundation.
A good foundation, yo.
As a let's say as a friend.
Yeah. No, cause like you're giving me hard questions here because like.
Well, I can. Okay. So I can try to give you one of your answers, which you already said, which is just giving back without any expectation of return. Yeah. Because that seems like, I feel like that's something that's been missing from my life. Is just me giving back. Because I had this. I'll tell a story of one time I went to, I think it was like the club for the first time, and I was drunk. Yeah. And I exited the club and I was with some friends, and this one friend, I was like, do you have water? And he was like, no, but I can get you some. And then he just popped into a shop and he just spent $2 on water. And that blew that blew my mind.
Oh, you're so wholesome. You're like, $2? Oh my god, I'm so touched.
Yeah, because I'm like because I wouldn't think of doing like that. That's not something that I would think of doing, right? And I'm like, I want to get better at this, because what I would think of doing is like, oh, like let's see if we can find them some water some other way. But he just went and boop, and then he had like Apple Pay on his phone. It was like boop. It took like 2 seconds. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit. So I think this is me giving you an answer. Okay, you can decide whether or not you want to take it.
Thanks for giving.
But I feel like giving back is probably one of your answers in terms of a foundation.
You're right. I guess giving back. Yeah, I don't know. I think you've outlined it pretty well. Just like no expectations. I still work on it, right? Like, I mean, like, I feel like especially in like my relationship with Ife too, like there's always expectations, like, and it's hard to not like have them. And I think it's like impossible to have zero expectations, because there will always be like some common ground that you establish, like a relationship or whatnot. It's hard for me to like say it this way. Sorry, I usually just function off of vibes. So
okay. So a good vibe. How about that? I'll extrapolate what you're saying and I'll like put it into more concrete terms.
Yeah, that's true.
A good vibe. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time, maybe understanding that like if someone's having a bad day, like it's not because they themselves are bad. It's that they had a bad day. That maybe if someone's defensive around you, or for example they take like you not responding as like a really deep scar to them, whereas you don't take it as much of like as heavily as they do, like I feel like I don't put as much like emphasis on that in a friendship, whereas like I know that like I know you do, and I also know like a lot of my other friends do too, that they're like, this is really important to me, and like when that disconnect happens, like understanding why it's important to them or why it hurts them so much, I think is important. Like even like going back to like how they've been scarred in the past by it, or like things like that. And then also just respecting that, like if that's something that they really value, trying your best to do it, maybe not being the best at it, but trying your best, you know? So just meeting them there, I guess.
Okay, I'm gonna bundle that into compassion.
Okay, all right. Your bundles. I'm so done with these boxes.
As I'm listening to you, I'm just like to anybody listening to this, right? Yeah. I feel like they're just listening to it to the stories that you're talking about.
That's true.
But the concepts, the concepts. I'm logical, right?
Yeah, that's why you're here.
Yeah.
you're here to make sure I don't go like derailing your podcast.
Yeah. This is what I do. Yeah. So like compassion, I think is it's basically understanding where people are at and having a curiosity in them and just meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
And you said, I said for you. The vibes, right, and then giving back. So I think those are 3 really good things for.
Thank you. Wow, you said it so great.
Yeah.
Good job.
You're welcome.
Good shit.
Yeah. So, I think for me, I feel like mine are a lot more like focused on the individual person and not so much focused on the interpersonal. Like I feel like the things you said are from one person to the other.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like a good foundation would be having confidence. I feel like because having confidence just makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
Like you don't like. I think that, you know, like sometimes people are like, oh, I don't really give a shit about what other people think about me.
Yeah.
I think that's bullshit to the degree of like, I don't think it's always the case. Yeah. I'm sure there's, you know, there's like a range, right? Like I'm sure there are some cases where you don't really give a shit, and then there's some cases where you slightly give more of a shit.
No, yeah.
Right?
It reminds me of like that quote of like, sorry, cutting you off, but like it's like even the kindest people will be mean some days, and even the like I don't know, like what you were saying basically, that people will fuck up. Yeah. So like, you know, like no one's perfect, right? You have your on and off days, but I think having confidence makes things a lot easier, because when you're trying to make friends and when you're trying to keep friends, if you don't have confidence in who you are, you can come off as like needy. You know what I mean? It's like I'm thinking about this from a, you know, like having a good foundation, just like if you were to start talking to someone, what are things that can just help you, what are things that can help increase the chances of you just creating a good vibe? And I think having confidence is a really good way to do that. That's true. I do
because
think
I'll add one more thing before you take the floor.
All right.
It also, like, the main reason why I said confidence is you're just able to handle rejections better.
That's true.
Like if you talk to someone and then you don't vibe, you just move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, like, you know, I'm not perfect at that, but that's like in the ideal case, like that would be the case, right?
Yeah.
But if you know, kind of dwell on it, it's not that great. And if it kind of stings a little, because rejection does hurt to some degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's why I said the confidence thing.
That's true. Like the ability to brush it off and like not take it too much, like to your own like kind of like self-image. But yeah, there's this point where it's like, yeah, like I think being confident is important, but I think also like if you're gonna find a friend, you want your friend not to also judge you when you're not feeling your best. Like when you're not confident, I hope the friends that you make, like they won't be like, oh, he's not confident anymore, let's not be friends with him. I think it's like, it really just comes down to like, as a person, have you developed yourself and try to heal yourself? Because if I think you've understood yourself and you've had that self-awareness, then you will naturally have that confidence. I think confidence is a result of you working on yourself. And I think that like, I think at the very base of it all is just like, work on yourself, man. You know, like
confidence is a result of a lot of things.
That's
it's like a cop-out answer for a lot of things.
Work, like anything.
And I think my other two are I guess the ability to be vulnerable and just good communication. I feel like when people say good communications, there's really a wide spectrum of what people mean.
Wait,
when
like,
they
is
say,
this for yourself or is this for like other people?
This is for like, I'm answering this from the perspective of like, if you were to go up to someone and start a conversation and try to make friends with them, you know, what should you have that just like, you know, increases the chances of you having a good vibe?
Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
And I think like in the past, I've had issues with going too deep too quickly. So there's also that with vulnerability. But I think being able to say things like just, you know, how you're doing that day or just being open to talking about yourself is just, I think that stands out to me in the many people that I meet. Like a lot of people from initial interactions, you can really tell how open someone is. And I think if you're an open person and, you know, the other person is an open person, then the chances of you getting along will just be a lot higher. Yeah,
the values, yeah. But okay, why are you scared of getting too deep too quickly? I want to ask that.
Because sometimes it alarms people. Like sometimes it scares people off.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So not like on your side, but more like other people don't like that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. Who did that? Who why?
I think there's like, so I think there's, because I've been on the receiving end as well, right? And like some of the things that go through my head is, is this person mentally okay? Is this person mentally stable? If we hang out more, are they going to be an energy vampire in the sense that they're just going to be ranting about things all day and not really give me space to talk about my things or respond, or are they just going to talk about their problems all the time?
Yeah.
And so they're very like, I think it's like your first impressions, like very like quick judgments that people can make.
Yeah. I see that. I can see that. I think like I have this issue of like, if that happens to me, I get really curious about why they're like that. I'm like, why are you like why are you depressed, or why are you like this way, or like that? But then it gets to the point where you're saying like energy vampires, where I start getting like, I feel too much of their emotions that like I cannot hold it anymore.
Yeah.
And then at that point I'm just like, okay, I think I'm gonna like have some boundaries.
I'm out. Yeah. You're just like, I'm out. See ya.
I'm so bad at that though. Like I'm so bad at saying like, see ya, peace.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like even if I'm like having like a semi vibe time, I'm just like, it's okay. Like I'll still be here.
Yeah.
These are people. They're cool.
I feel like we have the opposite problem. I feel like sometimes I give up on two people too quickly. Oh. And then maybe you don't give up on people when you should.
Enough. Yeah. Like literally, maybe that is the problem.
Yeah.
It's like, don't take my advice, because that is the problem. Yeah. I don't know. I learned like boundaries a lot in like some of my like more toxic relationships, where like I realized like I gave too much and now I feel nothing. Like
damn.
Yeah. But I think if it ever gets to that point, like definitely do like take not giving up with a grain of salt, where it's like, if it's affecting you and you know that it's deeply unhealthy for you, please I don't want people to.
So how do you know like when to cut off or drop friends?
Oh,
this is a hot takes topic.
That's hard. Oh my god.
Because I can give you an answer, but it's gonna be very logical. So
okay, I want to hear your answer.
You want to hear my answer first? Okay, so
with my answer.
I think like I'm like rehashing some of the people I've stopped talking to. I think that one answer I can give is when there's a fundamental difference in values. Aww. So it's when you see things differently, like when they're too different.
Yeah.
I think there's a point where it can be a discussion, right? Like if you see the way the world works and the other person see the way the world works and you don't necessarily agree, then you can talk about it, right? But there are some times where it's just so different.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one thing. I think the more common one is it just kind of like fades out. But I want to talk more about like the ones where you've had to make active decisions on, because I don't really count like friendships fading as like cutting out friends.
Yeah.
It's when you like actively decide to like stop talking to someone.
Oh, yeah.
So one example with that is I read this book called Attached, amazing book. I think everyone should read it, especially if you're going into like relationships, like romantic relationships. It's and it talks about attachment styles. And I realized, have you read this?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read the book, but there's so much media like referring to it that like I've watched like summaries, I've watched like TED Talks on it. I've watched like a lot. Yeah.
Because when I first heard of the concept of attachment styles, I did a quick Google search and like I did not get a good enough answer for attachment styles. And I was like, I was kind of pissed because I was like, I want to understand what this is, but like there's no good answer. So and what I learned, I guess like quick high level overview for the people who are listening / watching, there's I think 3
anxious,
4
avoidant,
anxious,
secure.
Avoidant, secure, and then anxious, avoidant. So secure is like you're good. Like secure is like I think one of my friends told me a story, and this is a good way to describe a secure attachment style.
Yeah.
2 people, they're a couple, right? They're dating. They went to a party. They don't talk to each other at the party, like, you know, every now and then, but like they went there, they met other people, you know, they were talking to other people, right? The guy was talking to girls, the girls was talking to guys, and then afterwards, after the party, you know, they met up together and, you know, like they talked about the parties. It's like that. I think personally that's pretty secure, because that shows they're just comfortable around each other. They trust each other to a high enough degree that they don't need to be around each other at the party.
Yeah.
So, and then there's avoidant, which is people who they seek social connection, but they want to stay distant
Yeah,
They
once
like
you get too close.
Yeah, like if you try to get close to them, they like back off. And then there's anxious, which is when you're just clingy, right? Like you like being close to people, you find it hard to like back away from people. And then there's anxious avoidant. There's usually different names for the fourth one. Anxious avoidant, the fourth bucket is just like a category where like you just have some combination of like the above two.
Yeah.
And so what I learned from that, and going back to the fundamental differences in values, is that I had one friend that where I was there's this term in the book called the anxious avoidant trap. Which is where in a relationship, someone
the anxious and the avoidant get
together.
Exactly.
Yeah, because like it works so like it's kind of fucked up the way it works, but like you know, the anxious person tries to get really close to the avoidant person, and then they like that, but then the avoidant person backs off, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. It's just something that just won't work unless you like really try to make it work. And so that's an example of a situation where I've had to like make the decision of like, hey, I'm gonna stop talking to this friend, or like you know, not reach out to them as much. All right, so let me go to the topic. So I really wanted to you said something to me right now. You said I'm also trying to be a good friend right now, which would imply that you feel like you're not a good friend. Which leads me to the question: what does make a good friend in your opinion?
Okay, I feel like at the end of the day, it's like just like making sure you're asking yourself like what you're giving in that friendship before anything else. And I think like on that point, like, no, just because I said I'm trying to be a good friend doesn't mean that I don't feel that I'm not a good friend. It just means that like I think like just like anything, like you constantly have to show up and constantly have to keep yourself accountable, because when you slack, you're not showing up. And I think that like part of being like a good friend is that like you want to constantly ask yourself, am I, right? And like I don't think it's ever a one-day job. Like you're just a good friend and now you're a good friend forever, because you're constantly being defined by everything that you do. So I think it's like a constant endeavor. It'll never end. Until you die, and then you're not a good friend anymore because you're dead. unless
I only half agree with that.
Okay.
And before I start giving my answer, I wanna dish out a quote which
Let's debate.
Let's debate. Yeah. Okay, so this quote is, trust alleviates expectations. Because the question that I asked someone one time was, if you don't have expectations for someone, then how can you know that they will do like the right thing? Right? If I can't expect someone as a friend to show up to something that I invite them to, how can I know that they will show up because they want to and they also value me as a friend? Right? And the answer that I got was trust. And I experienced this in the first person that I ever caught feelings for, which is like a whole other story.
Aww.
But basically I found that at some point in our conversations, I felt like I didn't need to explain myself as much to her. And I really felt that quote because it just felt, everything just felt lighter.
Aww.
Like I felt like I could just say shit and like not have to like back it up with like you know how like sometimes you like say a joke and you have to be like no but I don't really mean it, you know, it was just a joke. Whereas like with some friends you just like say whatever the fuck you want,
just say it,
and then like it's just like you don't, you know. I feel like it comes down to like trust and the good friend piece. Like I forget what it was that you said, but it made me think of the whole trust thing, like this. Oh yeah, I remember now. So you said that being a good friend is a constant endeavor. And I only half agree with that, because I feel like yes, it is something that you're constantly trying to do, but I don't think it should be to the point of like oh, if I don't do this, I'm not a good friend. Oh, if I don't do this, I'm not a good friend. Oh, if I don't do this, I'm not a good friend.
No, yeah.
Because I feel like they're like you have to prioritize yourself sometimes, and like sometimes you got shit going on. So just because like someone invites me to something, if I can't show up, I don't think that makes me a bad friend. So long as I'm not doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's
right.
True.
And I think the other element of that is having trust in them and understanding that they have trust in you.
Yeah, that's
because true. You know, like if someone invites, going back to the example, like if someone invites me to something and I can't show up, then I can either send them like a really long paragraph of like why I can't show up and like, you know, like I'm really sorry, I know this really means a lot to you, or I can just be like, hey, sorry, I can't show up because I got this thing and, you know, I booked it before, and just trust that they'll understand the rest. Like I think that as time goes on, like you needing to explain yourself, at least for me and like my experiences, you need to do it less. Because like you know where they're at, they know where you're at, and like you understand that like you guys have this mutual like feeling. And then you just need to explain yourself less because there's more trust involved.
That's true.
So I don't think I constantly think of whether or not I'm a good friend. Do you?
I don't think so either. I just think that like it's just like a state of being, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. I didn't mean like I agree with your point. Like, you shouldn't be putting in like, you know, studying every day. Like today I'm gonna like spend 1 hour to study the ethics of like friendship.
I can see you like at night. You're like, oh my god, am I a good friend?
Like,
was I a good friend today?
Oh no, that is doomed. But no, like I totally agree with that. Like I don't think like a part of being a good friend is also like not being too overly like self-conscious. Like I think like trusting someone is like, it goes back to that point of like trust someone before like asking for trust almost. Like I think that's like a part of it. And like that's the beauty of friendship, I think. Like just being able to like get each other without like not like needing to like cushion it. Because I like at work, like workplace relationships, or like with a stranger, like if you make a bad joke or like something that like you don't mean with a bad intention, but it offends someone, or like you feel like it might offend someone, you always like cushion it with like, oh, blah 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 blah.
Exactly. Because there's no prior trust established.
Exactly.
Like you have no idea where they're at, they have no idea where you're at.
And then you also feel like kind of threatened too if it's like work, right? And like it could be used against you.
Professional boundaries. You know, work is like a whole.
Exactly. But like I think if you have trust, then you can just say anything, and you realize like this person sees me for who I am, and like that I don't mean something bad like when I'm saying like scuffed stuff. But I totally agree with that. Agreed. Nodders.
So in your opinion, what makes a bad friend?
What makes a bad friend? I guess like someone who just like doesn't care, I guess. Like if you're not caring, you're not invested, you're not like doing that, then I think like you won't be a good friend. Like that's just that's
I'm also curious of like, so what I find really interesting about you is that you have this mix of really I haven't even said anything yet. I haven't even said anything yet.
I'm sorry.
Should I switch to negative comment mode?
Oh god, alright. Sign me up. I get roasted all the time.
What I find really interesting about you is I'll start with positives and then I'll do negatives.
Okay. No. Well, just start with the negatives.
You want me to start with the negatives?
Stop buttering me up for the negatives. Just hit me with the negative and then talk about the positives.
Okay. Sure. Okay, I'll hit you with the negatives then. I need to reframe what I was gonna say then. Okay, so what I think it goes back to what I said before of it took me a long time to understand where you were at. Because I remember one time I wanted to come over at your house and I had to call Yifei. You don't mind if his name's on the podcast, right?
I don't.
Okay. So
I remember this.
But for context, in case people don't know, Yifei is your boyfriend. So I had to call Yifei because you didn't reply. And I'm like, listen, I'm coming over your house in like 30 minutes and I don't know if you're going to be there or not. I need a response.
Yeah.
So I had to call your boyfriend to get through to you. No. And I'm just like, come on, this level of like delay in messaging is unacceptable. What the fuck?
Holy shit! I'm being exposed so hard right now.
Yeah. But you know, it goes. It took me a long time to understand where you were at because you're very not like me, and so I feel like sometimes people almost expect things that they would expect of themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like we're on opposite spectrums. So it took me a long time to understand that. And then also have compassion for it.
I'm sorry. Thank you for your compassion.
It's okay.
Like, honestly, at the end of the day, like, that was, like, not cool. Like, yeah. I think I...
Oh, and by the way, for people who are like, I should have called you, I did call you.
Yeah,
you didn't pick up.
I'm sorry.
I had to call your boyfriend. Just to make sure that's clear.
Oh, no, exposed. Yeah. No, yeah, I'm really bad with that just because I suck at like following up and like keeping on tabs with my phone. I think I'm like an old woman in that regard where like my friends call me literal like rocks because I don't reply. Like I just don't. So yeah, like I was never really good, but like sorry for that. Like,
yeah, it's fine. I don't really care that much.
I hope I'm better now. I don't know if I'm like.
You've gotten
ignore your call.
Yeah,
I wasn't ignoring your call. It was just like, I get like my phone. For those of like people that don't know how crappy my phone is, it's like it's an old phone. It's not that old. It's just iPhone 8, but like the like notifications on it are ass. So I think that's what happened at the time. And also because I didn't check. And like when things like, I have this really bad habit of like when things like get too much, I just like kind of like implode. And I just like,
it gets overwhelming.
Yeah, it overwhelms. And I don't know if it's like my brain. I just like, I focus on one thing a day and I zone in too much on that thing that like I forget that there's other things. And then that like kind of, it causes me like a lot of problems where I like forget about other things, which I'm definitely like, I know it happens, so I'm like trying to work on it, but definitely something that I struggle with. And it's like caused me a lot of pain in other relationships too. Like there was one time when like I was like 30 minutes late to the gym with like my friend, and then she was just like, bro, what the fuck? And I was like, I'm sorry. And then she's like calling me and was like, you didn't even like let me know. And I was like, I'm so sorry, I just completely forgot about it. And she's like, how does that happen? Like, how can you forget about an entire ass thing? Like, how? I don't know. It's so bad. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, how about instead of like how about you roast me now?
I roast you?
Yeah.
I don't think you've been a bad friend.
Oh, I could roast myself.
Okay, do you want to you masochist?
But you have to come up with you gotta at least try to come up with something.
Okay.
Come on.
Something bad? That's hard. I don't know. Like, I literally don't know. Like, I don't think you've been a bad friend.
Okay, so there was this one.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
There was this one time where like you sent me a message on Facebook and on Discord. Yeah. Yeah, you said.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay, do you wanna talk about it?
You can talk about it.
No, you talk about it.
Okay.
Let me hear your side of things.
Wait, no. I need to recoup my memories. So like, I messaged you on Facebook and Discord because I cared about what was happening.
Right.
And then.
And then I took that as this person, I've told this person before in the past to only message me on one thing because I have my notifications turned on and I don't want to get the same notification for twice. Yeah. And so I took it that way.
No, but I didn't think like you were being a bad friend. Like I don't think I ever see it that way. I just think that like, oh, he's very sensitive to this and it's something that he probably needs to work on. Where like I think like something that's small shouldn't make like for me like it's like I'm like something that's small I feel like shouldn't like make such a huge difference in the friendship. So that's what I just viewed it as. I was like, oh, we're still friends. Like I was like, it's fine. I think next time I'll keep it in mind because like for you it was like, oh, she didn't remember like that I really cared about this. She doesn't care about me. Like that's like what it probably felt like. And like for me, I was just like, okay, that's probably what it felt like. So I was just like, I'm
sorry for that, by the way.
No, all good.
I low-key wanted to bring this up to apologize.
No, it's okay. Don't worry. Like,
yeah,
I know you're probably really sensitive about it because like it's something that you care about a lot, and I've been overly insensitive about other stuff. So I think it probably was like the buildup of that on this one little thing too. Like I feel like a lot of arguments that are like big arguments are usually about these like really specific things, but really all they're about usually is just like this like over time like this like sense of like distrust, like sense of disrespect, or like sense of like, do you see me for who I am, and like do you care about me? Like that's like usually what like arguments are about, like these three big things where like it's like you end up fighting about the dishes, or you end up fighting about that thing,
but there's like there's stuff that happened in the past that wasn't talked about.
Like literally Ethan and I, we fought about like he puts like garlic and onions after he starts cooking other stuff, and I'm like, how dare you do that? I was like, why are you putting the garlic and the onions first? And it was such an argument, but like like the stupid stuff is always about something bigger, I feel like. Or not maybe always, but like oftentimes it's like about something that's like bigger than what that thing is. I feel like
So what I was gonna say earlier is what I found really interesting about you is you have this really interesting mix of being able to talk about really deep things as well as keeping things lighthearted, and you also really care about friendships. I feel like a lot of people, they don't really put this much thought into being a good friend. And also thinking about stuff like this, like, how did that start for you? Like, where did that start? Was it always like that?
Yeah, first of all, thanks. I'm like, I am feeling shit right now. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy that you see it that way. But also, like, yeah, I think like a lot of people's superpowers often come from like a deep place of pain and like struggles. And I think that like, I told you this before, but like my mom was like talking to me like sometime when she came over, and she's like, Jasmine, I feel like you're like Mimi, I feel like you're so sensitive. And like she's like,
is Mimi your cat?
Mimi is like what she calls me.
Okay.
She's like, Mimi, hello, or she calls me Gosher, which is like dog shit. But yeah. Anyways, my mom. I love my mom, by the way. I love my mom. But like yeah, she was like you are really sensitive and like really overly sensitive. And I was like, no, I'm not. And she was like, nah, like denying it. And then she was like, I feel like it came from like when you were small, like me and dad would fight a lot, and like you were always really sensitive to that, and like I think like that made you overly sensitive to how people would react to you, and how you made people react, and you'd always really care about that. And so yeah, I think my sensitivity comes from like my upbringing, and how like like my parents they're divorced now, and like they went through some shit and everything. So yeah, I think it comes from that. Like going through that made me very like sensitive to those things.
Yeah, so it sounds like your experiences in the past kind of led you to be more aware of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it also sounds like as a byproduct, you care more about this.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword. Like a lot of the people that I know, like the reason why they're so successful, or the reason why they're so like leveled up in certain areas is because they've gone through shit on that area. And I think like some of the people that I admire like a lot, I admire them for that, because whenever there's like something that someone's really good at, I always feel like there's another level of like, what do you have to go through to get there? Like what shit do you have to go through to get there? There's like a story there. But
because you told me about a story about when you were in the grocery store with your mom, and then you out of nowhere you were just like, yo, hey mom, are you happy in this relationship? Why are you still in it? And I was like, you were like, what, 8 at the time? And I was like, damn, you were asking like banger questions at 8. No wonder.
Like, with the existential crisis in aisle 8 with the milk. He's like, whoa. No,
I mean, you were so young too, and I was like, oh wow. So I guess that's why, like, cause you ask some pretty good questions sometimes, and I was like, oh damn, God, wow.
Thanks for asking me too, because I think it's like, I feel like we just need to ask more questions sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's nice that we have the podcast. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, like what brought you up to be like so logical too, like thinking about these things, like, you know, like in the same light that like.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I haven't actually thought too much about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I had to guess, it was because of school.
Oh.
Like I had a experience once where I was in, I think it was 3rd grade, and I noticed
drama happens in grade 3.
it wasn't drama. It was more so like it was more so something that I realized that like changed the way I viewed school, and I guess in essence also life. But I saw someone, and she always got good grades on her assignments. And this is gonna sound kind of dumb, but before this point, I kind of thought grades were just luck. You know, like you do your shit, and then like, oh, if you were lucky, you would just get a good grade, right?
Yeah.
But then, so I watched this person. I was like, how is this person constantly getting? And I realized that she just put in a lot of work into her stuff.
Yeah.
And then so I was like, oh, so if I do this, then I'm also going to get the same results. So then I did it, and I got the same results. And then so I just kept on doing it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see.
And so I think that process led me to like really enjoy learning. Because I feel like a lot of people, they hate school, and like I have like negative opinions about the school system now. But when I was in it, I actually quite enjoyed it because I really like learning. Like learning is something that I take a lot of enjoyment in.
Yeah.
And so learning things, like figuring out how you work best, like reading things, logically putting things together and understanding things. Like I feel like a lot of this stuff over time is what led me to become so logical, and I also didn't really have a lot of exposure to the emotional side of things. And so I think if you put those two variables together, I guess that's how you end up with me here now.
Grade 3 Andy popping off just like epiphany. Grades are not luck, grades are work.
I also noticed that because I had a crush on that girl.
I could sense it through your story. Anyway, sorry. I was like, I see it.
Yeah. She's married now. It's wild. Whoa. I ran into her randomly.
You're so old.
At like
so old.
It's okay. I'm not. Old. It's fine.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm roasting you.
Yeah. But yeah, that's how I became logical. Yeah.
Wow. Grade 3 Annie really being like, how do I level up to impress this girl?
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, man, you know, like she's getting some good grades.
Rest of her life, Oh, well, I'm happy for her that she's married now.
Yeah. I ran into her like in person at like a superstore. Whoa. And like I did a double take because it's been like, I don't know, probably like 20 years or something shit like that.
How do you recognize
like,
them? Yeah.
Because she has a very distinct face. But I don't think she knows who I am. She either forgot. I'm like, sometimes I like look at people. I'm like, do they even know I exist? Yeah. So like, I recognize her, but I don't know if she recognized me. She probably didn't.
You exist.
Yeah. Thanks, Jasmine.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So to end off, we can either do a question or pick a question from the.
Oh, but there's NSFW stuff in there. Are you sure?
Pick one that's not NSFW.
Okay, so if we see a car, we just go next. Yeah. Okay.
Wait, actually, I have before we end. I have a topic on here that I want to talk about.
Okay. I'm so down.
It's about gossip. I learned recently that like girls talk a lot more about this shit than guys do.
Yeah.
Like, they talk about relationships. They talk about like, oh, like what do you think of this person? Yeah. Like guys don't talk about this shit.
Yeah.
And so how does it work?
How does it work?
Yeah, how does it work? So
that's such an interesting question.
Yeah.
How does it work?
That's like the first question. And then the second question is like, I guess I can understand why like gossip is such like a thing in high schools now, because like, you know, if this is something that girls talk about, you can naturally see how this leads to gossip, which is more like, you know, sometimes more viewed as negative.
Yeah. Well, okay, I can't speak for all girls.
Yeah. But you can try.
I can try. I'll try to speak for all women.
Yeah.
I like okay, so like this is maybe a bit of a tangent, but I was reading this book called *Sapiens*. Very, like popular, famous book
Yeah.
recommended by Bill Gates and everything. I just got to it.
Is it about Homo sapiens?
No way, brother. Oh my god, you're a genius. Oh my god, the logic.
I figured it out. Yeah.
Whoa, yes, no way. And they talked about how developmentally, like what separated the sapiens branch of kind of like human. I'm paraphrasing. I might be completely wrong. Don't quote me on this.
Sure.
But like developmentally, what separated like Homo sapiens from like Homo neanderthals or the other like species of humans at the time was that we were able to have these kind of abstract concepts, and that also gossip was a key point of how we socialized and bonded as groups. And yeah, sorry, just thought that was interesting. But like back to the point of like why girls do it.
Right, but just so we're clear, when we say gossip, like the definition of gossip that we're going for here is just information on other people. Yeah. Right? Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Why do girls do it? I feel like is kind of for the same reason. It's just to socialize and bond over something. Oh. And like I think like because maybe culturally it's like more like enforced, like in media you see it portrayed a lot more where like girls are gossiping, girls literally. Yeah. And then like it's just like a normal part, I guess. And then I think a lot of the time growing up when I would talk to girls, it'd just be like, so like who are you into? And it would always be like, who's your crush? And like it felt like you always had to have a crush or something. Yeah. So like I think like just like societally and culturally it's already like there, so it's like easier for us to talk about maybe. And whereas like I feel like guys maybe like growing up it's not like as much of like something that's like encouraged or brought up. Like
I feel like as guys sometimes those topics are like taboo.
Yeah, it's like oh, this makes me not
comfortable.
Yeah. Not comfortable. Also like
I don't want to share, you know, this goes back to the whole like vulnerability thing.
Yeah. And I think some people, they're like, if I share, am I weak? Does it make me less like a man? Like, am I being too like I don't know, like some people feel like emasculated by it. Mm-hmm. And I think like, no, like talk about relationships. That's how you get better. Like you don't know that you're doing well without having a relative comparison, or else you're just in a vacuum.
But right? do you just trust that the other person, because like something that comes into my mind, right, is like if you do talk about this stuff, how can I trust that A, the other person is not going to go and slander me, and B, that I can trust them. Yeah. You know, because when you're gossiping, when you're talking about things like crushes and stuff, that's a very vulnerable thing to talk about. And if you're talking about it with the wrong person, you know, that could be disastrous. Yeah. Right? So like, how does that work?
Well, make sure you're telling it to someone that you trust.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like I mean, like you wouldn't go to a stranger and be like, "Hey, yo, so like I have a crush on this girl." Yeah. Oh, maybe you could.
But
they wouldn't know.
But there's there's different social dynamics at play here, because within like, let's say you have a group of girls, right? And then one of them starts talking about crushes, and you trust half the group, but you don't trust the other half of the group. Oh. Right? And then, but everybody else is talking about their crushes. Then it's like, then what do you do?
Yeah, that's true. Like if you don't trust some of them, maybe you could be like maybe you could just like not say it if you really don't trust them. Like I mean, what other option do you have?
Or you like play along, you steal someone's answer. You're like, yeah, I like that guy too.
So
I feel like there's outs.
Yeah, that's so good.
I feel like I'm understanding this now. I'm understanding like how all this stuff works now when you probably understood it in like high school.
Really? Wait.
Because as a guy in high school, I'm like, yeah, you know, just like do my schoolwork, you know, maybe say hi to someone here and there, you know, like so I don't know, talk about video games or some shit, talk about TV shows, and
then, what do you guys talk about?
That's it. Like that's it. We don't really talk about deep shit.
Oh, sheesh. Okay. Yeah. Even I feel like in high school, you guys didn't talk about deep
Not really. I didn't. I was more of like a floater in high school. I didn't really have like one friend group.
Like a solid crew.
Yeah. So maybe that's why, because like I feel like when you do have a solid friend group, you eventually start to know the people a lot more, and then maybe you can talk about more deep shit. Yeah. But yeah, the stuff that I talked about was like not really.
Okay, let's talk about more deep shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I've always been like the person who really likes to talk about deep shit in the group, and like
we went on a trip together once, and then like out of nowhere you were like, guys, what's your biggest insecurity?
Oh, is that Bowen Island?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then I was like, I was driving, I was like I'm down. Let's talk about it. But then I bet everyone else was like, what the fuck?
What the fuck? Yeah. No, I mean, like, wasn't Clarence on the same car at the time too? And then I think Aaron as well, and maybe Tiger. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember who was there.
Yeah, you were down. You were down.
Yeah,
so
I was
this
down.
This is lit.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, like, you guys make me feel comfortable to bring it up too. Like,
but then like you talked about it and like no one else said anything.
I was so sad.
I don't know if I tried to.
Yeah.
I don't know if I tried to interject, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you tried, but then you just like directed it back to me after a while, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But you did talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, I don't know.
To someone who, because there's also the concept of like Vancouver is like like it's hard to make friends in Vancouver and stuff, but like to anyone who's listening to this podcast that is thinking like, oh, you know, I am someone who wants to make friends, you know, like I feel like this area, I feel like not even just friends, I feel like just deep relationships.
Yeah.
You know, you can take the question in whatever direction you want, but to some, because in the past I used to be someone who was like, oh, how do I make more friends? You know, like how do I have more deep relationships? Mm-hmm. Like what kind of advice would you give to someone with those questions?
I think just like it goes back to what we first talked about, which is like tune into your curiosity, like be genuinely like invested and caring about what people are going through, and I think then friendships will naturally follow. Like I don't think it's something that don't aim for it too hard. Like don't get too fixated on this like idea of like I need to have a best friend or like this friend or whatever. It's just like people like just admire people for who they are, and naturally like if they admire you back, they'll be a good friend. Like I don't know. Yeah.
I think I would say something similar. You know, go out there, meet people, be yourself. This is really general advice, which I hate. Like I when someone gives me general advice, I'm like, you got to break that down for me, bro, because like that's too general.
Yeah. Okay.
But I feel like the thing that I've learned is there's this one quote which I saw, which I really liked, which is you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. Like sometimes I'll meet someone and I'll just be surprised because it's like I was just myself, but they're nice to me, and you know, it's like sometimes it feels like you have to be more than just yourself. But I feel like if you meet the right person and you vibe and they treat you well and you treat them well, then it will work out. And if not, then you just kind of have to move on. And it's like it's in a way it's kind of like a numbers game, but that's,
you don't need to be more than yourself. You're already enough.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Yeah.
You're
great.
Tell that to the viewers and listeners.
You're doing great.
You're doing great, everyone.
You're doing fine, brother.
Yeah.
Getting along.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're all trying our best out here.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's chilling.
Yeah. Is that the end?
I guess so. Do you still want to do it?
Oh, right. Yeah, we forgot about that. Yeah,
okay.
pick a card.
Pick a card.
Yeah.
How does this work with like? So this is the Where Should We Begin game by Esther Pearl.
Yeah. You can. I
love.
Pick a card, any card.
Do I just pick it then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can. You just pick randomly. For the audio listeners, there's a series of card games that are kind of like conversation starters.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
we're picking a card from the card game Where Should We Begin by Esther Perel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I picked one. Since there's a lot of cards in this deck, you could pick one too.
Wait. Oh, am I gonna ask you this and you're gonna ask me this?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Wait, you're picking a random one?
Do I?
You could consciously sort through it.
Okay, give me that.
In case it's like something that you don't want to talk about.
Sure. Wait, for me or for you?
Oh, I picked mine to ask you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll do the same. Okay, I'll go for this one. Okay, go.
Okay, mine? Okay.
Yeah.
I want to know about an experience that shaped who you are that few people know about. That you haven't told a lot of people about.
I would say there are a few. Okay, I'll give two answers. One is more like my story, and the other one is like, here's something useful for anyone who's listening. So one of the instances is, I feel like people probably know about this, but when I went from university to like the real world, graduated university, getting a job, right? I realized that friendships were different. Because in university, it's like if anybody here is listening and you're in your university, I don't think you realize how good you have it in terms of friendships. Because I definitely took it for granted in university. Convenience, right? Like courses, it's so easy to make friends. But the event that I want to talk about was this realization of like, oh, I don't really talk to anybody from university anymore. And I feel like that's because in university I had a study group and we studied, but we really didn't like have any other common interests. And because of that, that's why friends fizzled out. And so I got a lot more into like what makes a friendship last, and I started like thinking about all these things, and I feel like common interests are a really good one. If you're at work, talk about things that aren't work. If you're at school, talk about things that aren't school, because it's those things that are going to that's what's going to keep the friendship going, like after work ends or school ends or whatever. And so that's one thing that I realized, and I feel like I'm still going through the process of friends, trying to make friendships.
So
right?
That's why you asked me all these questions today.
Yeah, and I feel like these, and it's also kind of why I started this podcast too, because relationships aren't just romantic relationships; they're also friendships. They're also the relationship you have with yourself, right? With your family, with I feel like there's so much about relationships that we don't talk about. That I wish I just knew earlier. And then the second thing is, one time I booked a karaoke event with some people from high school, and I remember going for a run, and I remember getting a message from one of the people at the end of my run, and they basically, long story short, everyone just canceled, and that hurt, but I I learned something from that, which was number one, I feel like I initiate a lot and people don't initiate back. And I have this expectation of people should initiate back, but I don't think that's a good expectation to have. I think if you want to make friends, initiate. Be the type of person that brings people together, that starts event, that finds a way to hey, I'm going to this, does anybody want to come with me? And if you don't find anybody, then find joy in going to it just by yourself. And so my strategy now, which is here, you can take this and use it for anybody who's listening or watching, is when you start an event, you should find someone who will commit 100%, at least one other person who will commit. And then once you have that, then you start inviting other people. And so worst case scenario, if everybody else drops, you'll have that one person that commits. And this goes back to the story that I told. I think if I was to break down why that didn't work out, the first was I didn't know the people that I invited well enough. I didn't know them well enough to know whether or not they would commit. And I feel like having relationships with people, it just increases your chance that they'll come to your stuff. If I invite a rando that doesn't know me well to come to an event, right, they're going to be more hesitant because they don't know me. But if I invite someone that I do know, then the chances just go up. And so I would say initiate. If you want to make friends, initiate. If it doesn't work out, then there's just learning lessons from that. You just try again. Fact check yourself for expectations, because my God, has it taken me a long time to be it's okay, other people don't need to initiate. I'm just this type of person. It's fine. And then also find one other person that's committed, and then build your circle or your invite list around that. I find that that's the strategy that I've settled on after a lot of
that's
trial
really
and error.
Advice. Yeah. I think finding one person that you're comfortable with, or even adding on to that, doing something that you'd be happy doing alone. Make sure that it's something that you enjoy first, and if you enjoy it, then as long as you're enjoying yourself, people around you will sense that, and they'll sense your energy, and you'll lift people up around you too. So at the very least, make sure that is something that you truly want to do when you're asking yourself that, and that you'd be happy doing alone. Just like that, or like the games where it was like, I really want to play this game.
Yeah.
Or like, like last week we went to like a market, and then I was just like, I want to go to this market. Do you guys want to join? And then it was just like, yeah, it just happens. So yeah.
Cool.
It's good advice.
Yeah. Thank you. My question for you is.
Oh right. Yeah. I have a question.
Fill in the blank. I hope to be remembered for.
Oh, dude, this one's so hard. So I listened to Lewis Howe's like School of Greatness, and at the end of every single one of his podcasts, he asks this question. He's like, if you were to like die tomorrow, right, and you like, there's this one page that you can only fill out with 3 things. Those are the only things you're remembered by. What would those 3 things be? And he asked this to all his guests, so like he's had amazing guests on. So yeah, I don't know. One thing that I do really like want is just for people to like treasure and to be grateful for what they have, like, and to like.
But the question is, what do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah, like to tell people that, I guess, like. To show that like, hey, like doing this is good. That like giving without expecting and showing up so that you can be of service to people, like helping people, like it means something, and that it isn't all for naught, and that you don't like, you know, like helping others is a good thing, and that it doesn't like
so
make you implode.
Make you implode.
Yeah.
You said.
No, I've encountered some like some people will tell me like, hey, like you can help people, but just to a certain extent, and like you can, like helping people at the end of the day like is just selfish because you just want to like feel good about yourself, and I don't really believe in that. Like I think like maybe to a part it's like, yeah, it is selfish. Like sure, like I do feel good when I do it, but like I feel like that's like a part of being human. Like the point why like we're able to like go to really cool places like libraries or buildings like is because people built this up for us, and like I want to do the same, so just be a part of something.
Okay, cool. So basically you want to be a positive influence for people.
Yeah.
Okay,
basically.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Well, thank you for. Do you want to plug anything or let people know who you are, or do we just end it there?
No, I want to be anonymous.
Okay, you want to be anonymous.
Who am I?
Well, people know your name, so yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, that's the end of the People Side Podcast 3rd episode. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for coming on.
Yeah, thank you
being
for
a great
inviting
guest.
me. Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. I don't know if we want to clap hands.
What is
we
this?
will say goodbye. We gotta say goodbye to everyone. All right.
All right. Bye.
3, 2, 1. Bye.
Bye.